Chaves County, welcome back. It is Homemade at Christmas. My name is Tamara Schubert. I am the Family Consumer Science Agent for New Mexico State University Cooperative Extension Service here in Chaves County. And this is part 2. We are going to be making shutter snowman today. So you want to grab a shutter. I redid the exterior of our house a couple of years ago and I saved all the shutters that came off of it. So I'm going to be using that today. I have already painted part of it for us. The bottom part is white, the top is black, because this is going to be our snowman's hat. It's probably about 10 inches. There's not a particular depth, it just depends on how much you want your snowman white or black. And then we need a couple other things. So I'm going to start at the top of our snowman and we're going to work our way down so we try not to get into the hot glue and the paint that we have going on. So we're going to start with this hat. Again, I've painted the top 10 inches already black, so his hat is there. One of the other things you want to grab is a piece of wood. I grabbed some old trim that I had around the house and I just painted one side of it black. So I set his hat kind of at an angle just to give him a little bit of character. And this is going to be that brim of the hat that sticks out. So I'm just going to use some hot glue and we're going to hot glue that down on the edges of his hat and we're going to let it sit for just a little bit. To add to his hat, I dug through my Christmas stash and I found some ribbon. This is going to act as the brim of that snowman's hat. So we're going to glue this right at the top of that board that we just put on. So you can see our board. It's the start of our hat. We're going to glue this right on the top so that he has a little bit of a brim. And I'm going to glue the front of it and then I'll turn around and put the edges on the back so that it sits in really well. So you can use whatever color ribbon that you want. Again, the nice thing about making homemade is that you can save a little bit of money. You can personalize it. If someone has a particular theme in their house and you want to give it as gifts, you can personalize it for that theme. You can personalize it for the color if you want to personalize the color to the house. I did not paint the back of my shutter. If you want to paint the back of your shutter, that is completely up to you. I didn't. Most of them you really won't see. The thing about hot gluing ribbon is just be careful. Do not glue it through your fingers. That does hurt. But you just want to tack it on the back so that it stays somewhat taut on the front. And then you can trim up the back pieces. I have one that's not quite long enough to get to the shutter part, so I'm going to trim it down in the groove over here. Okay, so we have the top part of our snowman's hat. He looks pretty cool already. Okay, so you can add a little bit more detail to the hat if you want to. I use some of that same ribbon and a little bit of raffia and put together a cute little bow. If you want to put some little bit of like mistletoe or garland or anything like that, it's a great place to add a little bit of character to your snowman. I'm going to sit here and hold this for just a minute so I make sure that it stays because my bow is pretty thick. But I just added it to whatever side I wanted to. Happened to be the side that was closest to me. The next thing that you're going to want to do is we're going to start painting his face so that I don't run my hand through the paint as I work my way down. So a couple of things, and you have some options. I'm going to choose to paint his eyes today. You can use buttons or googly eyes, however you want to. I'm going to choose to paint them today. So you will need some black paint and a paintbrush. So small paintbrush if possible. We are going to use that little trick that we talked about last week when we go to put the white part of our eye on. And we're going to use the other side of our paintbrush when we do that. So I have some black paint. We're going to start with his eyes. And you can pick and choose however you want to do his eyes. Today, I am going to make some square eyes just because I think he needs a little bit of quirkiness and a little bit of personality. So I'm going to start by painting a square for his eye, and I'm going to hold it up just a minute so that you can see kind of what we're doing. make sure that your paintbrush is pretty wet, and then that way you don't get the bristles sticking out and you can paint some pretty good lines. And I've got some hot glue running through mine as well. All right, so I painted the outline of my square, and I'm just gonna start his little eyeball so you can kind of see where we're going with his eye. And remember, little mistakes don't matter because they're gonna add to the personality of your snowman. And again, if you don't feel comfortable painting, you can always use those store-bought googly eyes. It's one of the things our craft stores are great for. They have come out with lots of stuff here lately, lots of big googly eyes, little googly eyes. They have some great things. So I painted a square, and I'm just finishing up his little eyeball on this one side so that you can see what it looks like, and then I'm gonna flip him over and we'll do the other side so he doesn't look lopsided when we get finished. And again, we're gonna add a little bit of white dot to it, but here is the start of my eyeball, and you can kind of see it runs right through the middle of a shutter. So I did paint down around that shutter. I am gonna give him an eyebrow on this side because I think eyebrows make snowman's personalities come to life. And he can be whatever personality you want him to be. I like my snowman a little bit goofy. Oops, see, and I just made a big eyebrow because I bumped my arm. So little imperfections are okay. That's a great thing about being homemade, is nobody knew what it was supposed to look like. So if it looks like something else, nobody knew. I'm gonna paint this other side real quick. And then we're gonna move down to his nose. So you have some options on his nose as well. My little nose is going to be orange paint because that's what I have on hand. If you have some more scrap wood and you want to make your nose out of wood, you can go ahead and paint that nose, and then we'll attach him with hot glue just like we did our hat brim. But I had paint, and that was probably the easiest way for me to do his nose. So I'm going to use paint. So you will want some orange paint. And I am almost finished with his other eyeball. And then I'll turn him around and show you kind of what he came out to look like. If you watched our part 1, we made a snowman as well, but we made him out of 2x4s. So you can always go back on YouTube and find those. They're under the Travis County extension here in Roswell. You can also find them on Facebook if you look down on some of the other hashtags. And I just realized I forgot to paint his other eyebrow, and that would look really funny when I turned him around, right? So I have his eyes completely done. He does have a little bit of personality. So I'm going to put the lid on my black paint, and I am going to grab my white, and I'm going to use that opposite end of the paintbrush, just like the trick that we showed last time. You're going to want to use the opposite end of your paintbrush. And if you're looking at my thumb, I did just get paint all over the place. So you may want to make sure that you have napkins or something handy when you're painting. I'm going to add a little bit here and here. So those little decals, that little white speck in his eyes, where his eye would be. I'm going to pause the video real quick, and I'm going to get rid of that paint on my hand so I don't track it back, and I will be right back. So I am back. I got that black off my hand. So we're going to move on down to his nose. And you're going to want some orange for his nose. And again, like I said, you can use wood if you'd like to use wood. And if you want to cut it out of foam and glue that on there, you can do that too. But I'm going to use paint today. And I like to use my paint caps to hold my paint because it makes it easier for me to move around. There's no rhyme or reason to how I like to paint my noses. But I like to, again, give them a little bit of personality. So my noses on my snowman are never straight. And I picked the middle of my shutter to start my nose because it gave me a big flat surface to kind of put him in there. And then when my nose dries, I will go back through with a black Sharpie and outline it so it stands out just a little bit more. Can give it a little more detail, a little bit more character. If you want to Remember, a great thing about doing homemade is that it's easy on our pocketbooks because we can use the resources that we already have on hand. So I have the outline of my nose, and you can kind of see him in the thing. We're just going to go through, and I'm not going to slick brush him. I'm going to add a little bit of detail and put a little bit more paint in there so his nose kind of looks a little bit bumpy, just like a carrot would. And if you wanted to, you could, right now the nose is big enough, you could squirt your paint right on top and just paint it that way. But I like to have a little bit more control over it. The next part we're going to move into is his smile. And again, you have some options on what you want to do. If you want to use circle rounds, you can use circle rounds. If you want to paint him, you can paint the smile on. I had a bunch of black buttons, so I'm going to use buttons for his smile. If you want to use foam, you can use foam. It's whatever you're comfortable with and whatever you have at home to make the snowman yours, or if you're giving it away, whatever may go with their Christmas theme. We are almost finished with his nose. I picked orange just because it looks like a carrot. So hopefully you guys are ready for Christmas. It is a couple of weeks away. I love to do homemade gifts for our Christmas. I think I can personalize them for everybody that I'm giving them to. And it is very handy on our budgets. So we as Americans probably spend $1,000 every year at least in Christmas gifts. And that's a lot when you're looking at a budget or if you're living on a fixed income. Okay, so my nose is painted. I'm gonna sit him up so you can kind of see the same view that I do. So I'll outline that black after the paint dries to make sure we don't smear it. But I'm gonna move on down to his smile. And his smile, like I said, is just gonna be buttons. I ended up picking 7 of the buttons just so that they are not even on each side. I want one right in the middle. And if you wanted to paint your smile, you can do that. You can give him an open face smile and show a little bit of tongue. You can do a closed smile. It's whatever you're comfortable with. But I'm gonna start in the middle with my black button. And the thing about using buttons is you kind of have to be careful not to glue through the button holes onto your fingers. So these don't take a lot of glue, so no need to go overboard, but you do want a good dot on there. He looks cute already. So we're gonna put the last one up on this rung, and then I will flip him around. So again, I use 7 buttons. You are welcome to use whatever you would like to. I used buttons just because that's what I had on hand. But here is my smile. And then we're gonna move down to the last part that I have today, and that is his buttons, or the coal that would be going down the front of our snowman. So every snowman is different. If you wanna put a wreath down on the bottom of your snowman, you can put a wreath on the bottom of your snowman. If you wanted to put a last name down here on this big flat part, you could put a name down on this big flat part. Again, I'm just gonna use buttons to do my little coal marks going down the middle. And my buttons are big enough that I can span my 2 shutters if I can get enough glue to go on the edges of my buttons. So you can use, again, whatever you have on hand. I had yellow buttons on hand, so that is what I'm using today. And remember, if it's not perfect, like that one's not quite square or in the center, if it's not perfect, it's okay. Nobody will know exactly what it was supposed to look like. And I think it's the little things that make the snowman pop and come to life. So here is our snowman. He is finished with the exception of outlining his nose. You can give him some rosy cheeks if you would like to. We'll move him down so you can see the big bow on his head. But there is our snowman. Remember, we do have a couple of things. If you're looking at homemade gifts, We do have some more books in the office from our Christmas showcase last month. So we do have some more books in the office along with some t-shirts from this year. You can pick up a book and a t-shirt for $10. But then we also have a great bundle for you if you're looking for even more ideas. So I went digging and I found 5 more years of Christmas Showcase books. So our Extension Clubs puts on a Christmas Showcase every year. They go through lots of homemade gifts and homemade craft items along with some yummy recipes. So if you didn't know about it in the past and you'd like to see what else was done, you can pick up this big bundle of past years for $10. So there's 6 books in here, guys. They make great stocking stuffers. You can use and spread the joy, but they are full. I'm going to estimate that the books are at least 50 pages of items and ideas that you can take home. You can spread with your friends and family. Again, they make great stocking stuffers. So come by and see us in the office. If you've got questions on Extension Clubs or joining Extension, you can give us a call, 622-3210. And we would be happy to answer any questions. Y'all have a good Christmas. We have a couple more weeks, so make sure you join us next week for Homemade at Christmas.